Cathy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you making time for this. Where are you in the world at the moment? You are not where you normally are. You're on a little similar to me. You're on a trip right now. Is that correct?
Correct. On a little hiatus. Usually I'm based in Chicago for school for my MBA, but right now I'm in Jersey visiting family.
And this is your MBA that you're doing at I made notes, Kellogg Northwestern School of Management.
Correct. Yes, I'm very lucky. I start classes in September, and yeah, I can't wait. Honestly, it's been a goal for some time now.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah, must be such a ride. Tell me a bit about your history with the entertainment industry. Where did you get started? What have you done along the way? How did you end up where you are right now?
Yeah, so I actually started out my career in journalism. So I guess I've always been a fan of like the storytelling medium. And I was writing for like my school paper in college, and I kind of thought that that would be my path. And then I actually did an internship in journalism at CNBC.com, which is like the business news portion of NBC. And I hated that internship. I found journalism to actually be super stressful. Like a stock would fall and I'd have an editor over my shoulder yelling at me to get it online. And I couldn't hack it, to be honest. It was so stressful and I couldn't do it. But I'd also always been in theater my whole life, and I saw the cameras in the newsroom and I thought maybe like I need to be on that side of it, on like the broadcast news side of things. Tried broadcast news for an internship. That felt like closer to what I wanted to do. And then I thought, why not try late night, which seemed like a really interesting combination of both my love of current events and also like sort of theatery because it's live and performance like. Tried late night. That also was not for me, which I can discuss at a later point. So graduated college, actually not knowing what I wanted to do. Still knew I loved like storytelling and all these things, but really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then ultimately ended up doing NBC's Page Program Fellowship, which is a 1 year
Hmm.
fellowship at NBC. So
Hmm.
moved out to LA for that. COVID happened, so almost all of it was virtual. But I did learn from that program what I wanted to do, which was unscripted TV. That was my second rotation. And I went right from the NBC Page program to Netflix, and I was there for a few years working in unscripted content. And then I decided to pull another 180 and go get my MBA, and hoping to pivot to more of like a strategy role in entertainment. That was a very long-winded background of mine. Hopefully not too long-winded.
Yep, that's all we've got time for, folks. Thanks for tuning in. This is No, that was a great introduction to yourself. It was far better than I could have done trying to introduce you. So thank you for saving me the trouble of doing that. What a journey you've had already for somebody who is, if I may say so, fairly young, and that it seems like you've achieved quite a lot. And honestly, I'm not a fan of people making up their mind what they want to do too early in life. I think having the occasional 180, even three or four of them at some point in your life, I've done it and I'm very happy with where I ended up. So I honestly applaud you for having the courage to do that. And for also, I think you've always had at the back of your mind, by the sounds of it at least, maybe that deeper feeling that this is all connected somehow. Even though it feels like a 180, I kind of know where I'm going long term and all these dots are going to connect at some point, right?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I also agree it's like crazy that we ask like little 15-year-olds to start specializing and ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do when I
Yeah.
was 15. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was 21. But yeah, I think I did always have this idea. Like I always did love watching TV. That was what I did after school. I never played sports or anything. And I always loved storytelling, so it is all connected, but it took some time to, I guess, see how the dots were connected.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that is because when we grow up watching these TV shows, we're probably not thinking, I could do that. That looks like an easy career path.
Yeah.
There's this kind of reputation almost that it's not an easy industry. And I don't think parents talk about it that openly when you're a kid, but there's maybe something subconscious that we pick up on that I think that's a tough industry to get into, and maybe I should focus on what they're teaching me at school, which is nothing to do with this industry, unless you're doing, I suppose, drama or something. But
Absolutely. Yeah. I had parents who were in medicine. I'm from Jersey. I didn't know anyone who was in entertainment. And even though I loved watching TV, I never considered going into it until, I ended up in college and got
Hmm.
an
Mhm.
internship in late
Yeah,
night, but it was
yeah.
not on my radar until then.
TV is the magic box in the living room that's
So,
part entertainment, part babysitter. And
yeah.
for me watching it, it wasn't like I could probably be on TV one day, right? Because somebody's got to do it. I thought it was all magical. And I mean, it doesn't help that I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So the shows I was watching on TV was, the Chronicles of Narnia. So I'm looking at Aslan on screen, like an animatronic lion on screen. You're not thinking, oh, I could do that. It's not really where your mind goes.
But it is magical. It is magical.
It is magical, yeah. And then you went into unscripted, which is also magical in a very, very different way.
Yes.
It's uh, it's what I do want to just touch on that, and then we'll get into the theme of today's conversation, which
Cool.
is giving your time to help others, which I think is such an important concept, and probably nowhere more important than in the entertainment industry. But just real quick before we do that, what was the pull to unscripted television? What was it that made that switch for you?
It's funny because that actually felt weirdly like another 180 to me. I actually studied playwriting at Brown as an undergrad, and I always enjoyed writing. And I think when I went into NBC's Page program, I expected to end up in scripted TV, but I had this rotation in unscripted, and it really just clicked, and I loved it. For one, I loved the authenticity of it. And two, I loved that you could work on just totally different shows. Like one moment I'd be working on a cooking and baking competition, one like a talent competition, or a like fitness physical competition show, or dating and relationship show, or a home renovation show. That is all considered unscripted. And I thought that that was so cool that each day could be different and you could work on all these different genres under the same different subsect.
Mm,
Whereas
hmm.
scripted TV kind of either dramas or comedies, and it felt more similar to me. And then the other reason is that the Lincoln statement, maybe you're going to kill me for this, but I feel like people tend to be nicer in unscripted TV than in TV and film. The thing is, okay, hear me out on this. Unscripted budgets are much, much lower than scripted TV and film, especially, film, like the giant $250 million blockbuster films. So because our budgets are smaller, like the pressure is not as high. The stakes are not as big. If we have a couple shows that are flops, it's okay. You didn't lose the company like $1 zillion like you would if a Marvel film flopped. So I think that people in unscripted tend to have a little bit less pressure, and I think it showcases itself in being nicer. You
Okay.
can disagree on that. You can disagree.
Well, I've only worked on one unscripted show,
Okay.
and it was during COVID. So we were working remotely. We did about 2 weeks in a production office before lockdown happened. So
Okay.
2 weeks into this show, lockdown happened, and I had just barely met the whole team. And then it was like, by the way, we can't meet in the offices anymore. We're going to have to do this whole thing remotely. So everything from then on was on Zoom. I would say it was a great experience. Everybody on that team was pleasant, but I think that's been my general experience of the industry so far. Maybe I'm just green. Maybe I haven't done it for long enough to be jaded and to meet all these nasty people that work in scripted. I don't know. um, for
I
now,
think
I will absolutely respect your opinion, and your train of logic makes sense to me. The higher the budget, the more pressure there is. Probably it's more competitive as well, I would say, because I think there's space for more unscripted than there is scripted because of the budget, because of certain and because there's, like you said, there's so much diversity in the subject matter. You could be doing anything and it's unscripted, where, as you said, there's certain limitations with scripted. So yeah, I will honor your perspective on this.
appreciate it.
Otherwise, this would be a terrible start to the episode. We'd just have an argument and then peace out.
So
um,
true.
Well, that would go against the theme, which is giving your time and being nice to other people. So let's not disagree on something early on. So this is something super important in my journey, and I will be just straight out the gate. I want to be honest with you because I think this is one of the most important things that people maybe don't know about this subject, which is that even though it is inherent as human beings to be nice to other people, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why we should do it, it does come easily to some people compared to other people.
Hmm.
There are certain people who are just wired to be kind, compassionate, giving, and then there are other people through no fault of their own. It's nature versus nurture, combination of the two normally, and they are more self-centered. And far be it from us to demonize anybody. So I think that's something to bear in mind here is it's a skill. It's something that you develop over the time that you've been doing it. And that's kind of where I want to kick off, because when I look at somebody like you, your bio, what you've done with your life so far, I would guess, tell me if I'm wrong, you skew more towards this comes kind of naturally to you. You had an instinct that giving back to other people was important from an early part in your career. Is that true, or have I misread that situation?
I think you're right. I think as soon as I like felt like I started knowing what was what in the industry, I tried to help other people and give my knowledge back. So I think it does come somewhat naturally.
Yeah, and I'm jealous because it doesn't come naturally to me. And I make an effort now, and that's why it's such an important
Well,
topic
you're
for
making a
me.
great effort. I mean, this podcast is helping people.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I
This is
started
more
it.
than an effort. This is a successful.
I appreciate you saying that, and I do want this podcast to grow, and I want to spend the rest of my days as a writer talking to other writers, other creatives. It's so joyful for me. It's an example of being selfishly selfless because I get so much out of this, and it helps other people. So,
Yeah.
but honestly, the whole spending time helping others, it doesn't come easily to me, and I want to be respectful of anybody out there listening to this that has that same challenge. It's not supposed to come easily to everybody, because the reason I address that is because there might be somebody listening who struggles with this, doesn't come naturally to them, and they're judging themselves. They're thinking that they're broken or that they're not a nice person. It doesn't mean that. It just means we're all wired differently.
Yeah.
I think we can agree that that's true. I think just
Yeah. I
go for a
definitely.
walk around LA. You will see that we're all wired very differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be clear, like, I get tired and frustrated, and sometimes I'm like, I wish I didn't schedule 3 calls with students today, but I did, and you feel good after. And I think I think it is important to help other people get into this very exclusive and sort of elusive industry.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you've had some very practical experience with this. You have been a mentor. I would even say that starting The Hollywood Assistant was kind of a giving act. It was, I don't know, I'll be honest, I don't know the business structure. I don't know if it's a paid gig for you or whether you just did something out of the kindness of your heart. So can you speak to that just for a few minutes here? Tell us a bit more about The Hollywood Assistant. Leaning into, particularly just to stay on theme here, why was it important to you to start such an organization knowing that it was going to be very helpful for those people that encountered it? Why was that such a big deal to you?
Well, firstly, I am not paid for the Hollywood Assistant. I'm actually net negative from it because I have to pay for the email subscription to send out the newsletter.
Right,
But
right.
it
So
was
like
important to
19
me.
bucks a month on MailChimp, is
Yeah,
it, or something?
well, a little bit more than that. But anyway,
I've been
uh,
there so many times.
yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
So
every time I start anything. Yeah.
yeah, something you have to consider. But I started at February of 2023. And at that point, I felt like I had really found my place in entertainment. I'd been at Netflix, I think, for a year or two at that point. And I had a lot of people reaching out to me on LinkedIn, especially students, like wanting advice. And I'd always try to take as many of those calls as I could. But ultimately, like, I did have a full-time job and I couldn't take all of them, but I wanted to help people and I wanted to spread this knowledge if I could figure out, I guess, a more efficient way to do that. I definitely struggled a lot to break into entertainment, which we've touched on. I'm from Jersey. I had no connections, and it was really tough for me. And I was only able to do it because of the very kind alumni who gave their time to me and got on the phone and explained to me the differences between a segment producer and a line producer, or what unscripted TV even was. I hadn't heard that word. Um, So I figured that I could use my journalism background. I've, always been a writer, especially in the nonfiction side, to kind of create a newsletter that was like sort of a how-to to help people like break in and give advice, and also like shine a light on industry assistants. I think industry assistants are amazing. I was one for many years at Netflix and sort of as an NBC page. And it's sort of a thankless job, to be honest with you, but they do so much. And I wanted to
Mm.
give them an opportunity to like build community and highlight networking events they could attend and have the opportunity to write op-eds and showcase their opinion and advice, which a lot of them are not able to give their opinions on their day to day. They just sort of listen to their bosses. So the Hollywood Assistant was born, and it's kind of evolved a lot in that time. I've changed the sections, and I was editor in chief for just over a year, just handed that role off to two new amazing editor in chiefs who've taken it even further, added new sections. I have tons of other industry entertainment folks who are collaborating and contributing fantastic op-eds and journalistic pieces. And it's been amazing to see how it's helped people. I've been lucky to hear how people have like gotten job opportunities from contacting someone who was interviewed through it, or gotten a resume review from someone, or just that they were happy to like have their voice finally heard and share an op-ed on something that had been bugging them.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I'm wondering whether that's going to continue to be a part of your path. It sounds like you started that and you had a plan for it, and now you've kind of stepped away from it, or at least the position you were in. What would be kind of the next step for you? Would there be something else similar? Would you go down that road again? You've already said that sometimes you get a bit fed up and that you wish you didn't have that to do, but I can't imagine you, because I think what I'm trying to get us to here is what can we do in order to actually go ahead and do this. Give our time to other people. Having said it doesn't come easily. It took
Yeah.
me a long time to land on maybe I'll do a podcast and some free writing mentorship. Maybe that's how I can contribute.
Yeah.
What would be next for you, do you think? Is it going to be something similar to the Hollywood Assistant, or is it going to be something completely different?
Yeah, that's a good question. For one, for the Hollywood Assistant, I didn't step aside because I didn't love it or didn't want to do it. I want to be clear about that. I stepped aside because I feel like, to stay true to the mission, that the opportunity of running the organization would be given to a Hollywood assistant or two Hollywood assistants, which is why when I decided to leave Netflix a little bit ahead of my MBA program, I gave it to two buddies who are amazingly
Mm.
fantastic and talented. As for what is ahead for me, I think things will be different once I start school in September, but I'm hoping to help my fellow classmates. I think some of them will be wanting to transition into entertainment, and I'm excited to give them my knowledge. I continue to take calls all the time with people on LinkedIn. I have two scheduled today for students who want to go into entertainment. I mentor students through Brown, formally, which is my alma mater. And yeah, hoping to just continue helping people as much as I can, because I think that if you want to go into entertainment, you should be able to. I don't think that that's like such a crazy, idea.
It's definitely not. And that brings me nicely to something that I would love to get your opinion on. I said at the beginning of the episode that I think this notion of giving time to others is especially important in the entertainment industry because it can be seen as quite a self centered industry. I've seen that on occasion, and other times I felt like I don't know where it gets that reputation from because the people I've worked with have been very kind and very supportive. What's your thoughts? Do you think there is an sort of a higher percentage of selfish people who work in entertainment compared to other industries? Or do you think that's mainly just a bad reputation, maybe an outdated reputation, and nowadays it's a much, much kinder place to work?
I I want to tell you that everyone is like perfect and supportive and amazing, but I think that that would be a lie if I'm being honest. I can't compare entertainment to any other industry because I haven't experienced any other industry, but I think it really depends on the person. this also is maybe a blanket statement, but I think there are some people in the older generation who suffered a lot when they were trying to get into entertainment, and they call it paying their dues when they started out at a talent agency most often, and were paid really low and maybe not treated super great. And I think there's a mentality from some of those more old school Hollywood people who think that the new younger generations need to pay their dues too, and that they need to
Mm,
suffer a little bit as well. I don't think that's everyone. That being said, do I know some people who I think have that mentality? I do. But there are really amazing, supportive people too. Um, and I know a lot personally who are always willing to help out and try to get on calls with people and help them when they can. But it depends,
mm.
honestly.
I think, having heard you say all of that, something that just occurred to me is what is probably true is that yes, there are some jaded, maybe we could say self-centered people in the industry. The reason the reputation persists is probably because they're more public facing than in other industries. So, other than tech, which has had a big explosion recently in terms of public facing figures, entertainment industry is the industry that we know the most about if we're external to that industry because they are inherently in the public eye. So anything they do that comes across as selfish, materialistic, shallow, anything, it's going to be news. Whereas in other industries, even if it happened just as much, we just don't hear about that because no one's reporting on the textiles industry or
Yeah.
not many people make the headlines from that industry. No offense to any of my textiles people out there, love what you do, respect, someone has to do it.
No,
Let's
it's
let's
true
not
though.
derail. Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. And my experience, like I said, it's been mixed. I've met some incredibly generous people who have gone out of their way to help me to get to where I am today, as have you by the sound of it. And then I've met some people that I would happily never speak to again. And that's probably been your case as well by the sound of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it is. That being said, this is a great industry. I think it's worth going into if it's, something that someone out there listening is passionate about.
Oh,
There's so much.
100%. Yes. And if I've said anything to dissuade anybody of such things, I apologize because for me, it's the most exciting, most rewarding industry. It's also one of the toughest, and I can
Yeah.
say that having worked in too many industries to actually admit to, because that would carbon date me, and I don't want to do that. But I've worked around a lot of different areas and industries, verticals. I've been in different companies, different positions, and I've never worked in an industry like this. And
Yeah.
and I mean that in a good and a bad way, I guess, now that I think about it.
That's the whole thing though, right? Like everyone secretly wants to be in entertainment. Like your barber and your dentist, like they're all
Right.
asking you your job and think it's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I also love the fact that you think I have a barber. Look at me. I have a $17 haircut from Supercuts. I don't see a barber. No. But this isn't about me. Let's not make this about me. I want to ask you this about being kind, giving your time, serving others. What do you think some of the benefits of that are from a professional standpoint also? But what I'm really interested in is there's so many benefits in terms of even your own sense of who you are and your health. I mean, various studies now have proven that these acts of kindness are good for you. Is this something that you've experienced directly? Maybe you haven't spent too much time thinking about it, but I've experienced this in a very visceral way. My mental health has improved. Even my physical health seems to improve. Um, and there's a lot of studies linked to this now, longevity and emotional resilience. Has that been your experience? If we were in court right now, there would be objection leading the witness because I've just given you the answer I want you to give me. So I apologize for doing that.
No,
But
it's
be
okay.
be be honest with me. Have you experienced anything like that?
Honestly, I do think you're on the right track. What comes to mind, well, sort of what we were talking about. This is a tough industry, and I think that you really have to love it to be in it because it is tough. And I think, talking with people on students or whomever on LinkedIn reaches out to me wanting advice who are just desperate to get into entertainment, I'm reminded that, I do have a really cool job, or I did have a really cool job before I left Netflix. And it's a great industry. And yeah, it makes you really thankful and I think appreciative for what you have, remembering that other people are like really want to be where you are. So I think, yeah, mentally it keeps me grounded and reminds me that I have a lot to be thankful for. And there are a lot of people who want to be in my position and I'm happy to help them. But yeah, it also makes me just feel grateful for where I am.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's an interesting way of framing it. It reminds you of where you are and some of the abilities that you have to help others, which is a privilege. And we should be very, very grateful for that. Have you heard, this is one of my favorite evolutionary tales, have you heard the tale of one of the reasons it feels great to be kind to others? The kind of the origin of reciprocity. Have you heard this?
I don't think so.
Super fascinating. I love studying evolution, evolutionary psychology. Just I worked for a light as a life coach for many years, so understanding what makes us human, how our brain and body works, why we have all of these drives that we can't turn off because it's millions of years in the programming. I love this area of study, and something that I learned about reciprocity, why it feels so good to be kind to others, is because when we were, hunter gatherers, if we killed something like a mammoth, there's only so much that I could eat on my own before I get full. And if I
Mm.
can't eat any more of the mammoth, that's a lot of leftover mammoth. And if I just let it go to waste, it rots and then I can't eat it. If I share my mammoth with other people, they will remember that. And then the next time they kill something, they're going to let me have some.
Mm.
So essentially, you're storing calories in other people who will then reciprocate the next time they hunt and kill something. So it's this really powerful drive we have to do good for others because it bonds us together and it helps us to grow stronger as a back then it
Mm.
was a tribe, nowadays it's more, community. And I think about this often, not that I want to go around thinking about killing mammoths, but just in general, I think about this inbuilt sort of primal desire that we have to be kind to others.
Mm.
And it comes back to this survival mechanism that we all have. I just find that really fascinating.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is really, really interesting. Yeah, I see that.
it's maybe not what most people think about when they're being nice to somebody else. If you hold the door for somebody, you don't expect them to share their next meal with you. That's not quite how it
For
works
sure,
anymore.
sure.
That would be amazing, though. But I do think it's interesting to think about it from that perspective because going back to what I said earlier about some people feel like, oh, it just doesn't come naturally to me. You'd be surprised once you start doing it. It's like a habit that will be built quite easily because you do have this underlying desire to be kind to other people. Even if you haven't exercised it recently, it's in there somewhere, isn't it?
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we cover sort of some practical takeaways here. So we've talked a lot about what this looks like in your life and some of what it looked like in my life. If there is somebody listening to this who's thinking, this all sounds great, I want to be giving my time to others. I'm a bit pushed for time though. I feel like I can't do it. What would be one piece of advice that you could give to somebody who's just looking for an opportunity to get out there and do some good in the world? Is there a first step that you would encourage? Is there a group that you know of? How would they get started? Other than helping out with the Hollywood assistant, obviously.
That is
How
one
else would
way.
they get started?
Yeah, there are other ways. I mean, if you're an assistant in the industry, you can join like groups. Awesome Assistants on Facebook is one of them, or the Young Entertainment Professionals, which is run by Trevor Romero, and that's on LinkedIn. And assistants or other people in the industry are always asking questions. And if you know the answer, you can slide in, and that's one way to help people. I think the easiest and honestly not super time consuming way is agreeing to have a phone call with that random person that reaches out to you on LinkedIn, which I
or
know,
a podcast episode.
or a podcast episode, yeah, which can be daunting to talk to someone, I guess, that you haven't spoken to before, but it can be really, really helpful to them. That is a super simple, like 30 minutes of your time. And then there's more tangible volunteering. When I was back in LA, I recently moved. I volunteered through the nonprofit Good City Mentors, which I mentored high schoolers through them, which was an amazing opportunity. And it's only 1 hour of your week, which really is like not that much time. So there are tons of, I think, low lift ways to do it. But you could also write something for the Hollywood Assistant or get involved there. That is a great way too.
Shout out to Hollywood Assistant and also shout out to Young Entertainment Professionals. I have to say, that is a great organization. I love Trevor. What he's doing there is amazing stuff. I've been to a few of his events. I should say their events. It's a team effort and always had such a great time.
Yeah, it
Really
is
good
great.
group. I recently joined the Hollywood Radio and Television
Oh yeah.
Society. Very good networking group. And talking about, volunteering to do things. The first event I went to, they just happened to mention that their marketing could do with some support. And I have about, goodness me, 12 years experience in digital marketing at this point. So yeah, I just said straight away, whatever you need, let me know. I will help you out.
Amazing.
Because, my point being, if you're looking to take that first step, get out there. It doesn't necessarily need to start as an opportunity to volunteer or to go and do something planned. If you just get out there and start talking to people, they will let you know where they need help. People are not shy about that.
So true.
You could probably just scroll Instagram and you'll find somebody that's crying out for help. So
Yeah,
it's not the world is not shy of opportunities to help other people. You just have to keep an eye out for it.
agree.
Yeah. So we've covered some practical things there. I want to touch on this point about what if somebody feels like I just need to focus on me right now. I don't have enough time to do this. Because there's people listening that are thinking that. Like, this all sounds great, but I don't really have time for this. I got to focus on me. I'm at the beginning of my career. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're higher up and they're still focusing on themselves. Do we have any wise words that we could share with those folks who are concerned that putting other people first might take something away from themselves?
I totally get if you really seriously do not have time, you're dealing with something that is totally real. You don't have to be giving 40 hours of your week every week to be helping people. That's ridiculous. That being said, I do think that the vast majority of people can afford just 30 minutes of their time each week to get on a call with someone or do some sort of helping back. It really is not that much time. And I do think that honestly, the further along you are in your career, I know you get busier, but that's when you can really make more of a difference and really help someone, maybe give them a recommendation to your company or really know as someone who's a hiring manager what they're looking for on resumes and you can take a quick look at their resume. So I really do think it is so important. Like if you really don't have anything to lose, and as we've said, like I really think you'll get the bug. Like I think you'll do it once and you'll be like, oh, that felt great. And they were so grateful. And I can't wait to talk to some more people next week. So that's what I would say.
Very, very wise words. Yeah. I think that's definitely a YouTube short. That's the last 60 seconds of you speaking. That was great. That's definitely going to clip that one. That was
Cool.
a speech. And I would add to that actually that I've found that giving time in a certain way can be what I would call a time multiplier. So you're giving time on the front end, but actually you get back that time and energy often many times greater. And this, again, it's the law of reciprocity. So you help somebody out with something as a simple as a recommendation, that person goes on to land a position in a company and then they're the person that reads your script one day and says, yeah, this we should give this guy a chance. So you've gained back time and energy on that one simple thing that you did. It does tend to work like that, if you want to call that karma, universal energy. I don't want to label it, but it
Yeah.
does seem to work that way.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've had a lot of people who I've talked to who were dying to go in entertainment, trying to get advice about it, and now they are in the business at, a bunch of different reputable companies, and I know them now because I've talked to them before. So it is just, I guess, like an added bonus, icing on the cake, if you will.
It's icing on the cake, and it's also, for me, it completes the puzzle. The whole picture isn't complete without this part. I don't know if you know anything about the 12-step program that addicts will go through. So I will say, first and foremost, I don't have an experience of going through a 12-step program, but I know people who have. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12th step is become a sponsor and help somebody else to get sober.
Mm.
You have not completed the program until you do the 12th step. And your success rate of staying sober, I forget the numbers, but it's something like 90% higher if you do the 12th step. If you help somebody else to get sober, you are something like 90% more likely to stay sober yourself.
That's really, really fascinating.
Isn't that such an interesting stat?
Yeah.
It kind of warms my heart. Uh,
Yeah, that is really interesting. And yeah, I
yeah.
mean, my hope is that this new generation rising up into entertainment, that I'll have helped them, you'll have helped them, other people have helped them, and they'll be even more inclined to help other people when they get a little bit higher in their careers, and it'll be easier to enter
Yeah.
this very hard industry.
Yes, when the next generation are asking, how do we compete with AI movies?
Yeah, yeah. Oh God.
How do we create reality TV in this three-dimensional virtual world that we're living in now?
They'll just be following robots with a camera. That'll be the new reality TV show.
I think the robots will be holding the cameras as well, actually. I
Okay,
think
yeah,
there's gonna be
fair.
robots filming other robots.
Yes, exactly. Bring that up.
Oh, goodness. I don't want to end it on that note. That's a bit of a downer. So
It's fair.
I feel like it wouldn't be right to finish this episode without asking you personally, Cathy, if someone was to help you right now, because you've given a lot of help, if someone was to help you right now in your career, what would that help look like? What are you looking to do next, and how could somebody help you to do that?
That's a very nice question. No one has asked me that. Um, as I'm, about to start my MBA, I'm trying to explore different things. I'm trying to make this, potentially job function pivot into more of a strategy role with entertainment. I'm trying to get people in more strategy, business focused roles on calls. So if anyone knows anything about those roles or wants to have a chat about them, would be very open to meeting with you.
I love that. I will keep my eyes and ears open for you. Absolutely. I don't. Nothing's coming to mind immediately, but let me. You
That's
know what? I'm going to
okay.
spend. I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes on LinkedIn. I'm sure I can find somebody.
It's all good. I appreciate it.
Well, I have a lot of experience with business strategy. As I said, I have a marketing background, and
Right.
for the last 5 years, I've been a consultant. So I've been helping people with overarching business strategies, business planning, marketing strategies, funnel work, all of that. So in terms of growing and managing a business, I could probably
Yeah.
help you out with some things. I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but maybe a part two to this podcast, and we'll temporarily rebrand it and do a business episode instead. We are in the entertainment business after all. So,
True. Very true.
yeah. I could go on a 10-minute tangent now about how it's a business, and people need to know that, otherwise it's not going to work out too well. But that's not what today's episode was about. So, any final thoughts on this subject before we bring this one into land? Anything you think we haven't talked about today when it comes to giving time, being kind, being compassionate, being supportive? Anything we haven't touched on?
I don't think so. I mean, I do want to reiterate that I know it's hard to give your time and I don't know, not everyone will be super grateful, but I do think that a lot of people you help out will be super grateful and they will remember the time that you gave them, honestly, for the rest of their careers. Because I remember everyone who helped me. I always get people reaching out to me and telling me that they remember advice I gave them. So I do think it's really important and a good thing to do.
Absolutely, yes. And going back to a previous point I had made about how it helps with health, I would just speak from a personal standpoint. It has helped no end with things like stress reduction, anxiety. When you're out there intentionally being kind to other people, it's one of the best panaceas for all kinds of things that you might be feeling, including loneliness, isolation, all of these things. There's a very well known saying, if you're struggling with something, help somebody else. And
Mm.
it seems counterintuitive, but in my experience, it's been exceptionally powerful. So
Yeah, I like that.
that's probably a great place to end. Where can people go if they want to learn more about you, the Hollywood assistant? Where would you point people to? We will link
Yeah.
everything in the description.
You can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And then as for the Hollywood Assistant, you can follow them on Instagram. It's at @the_Hollywood Assistant, or you can subscribe or check out the newsletter website, which is hollywood-assistant.com.
Cathy, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. As you said, it's not always easy to just hop on Zoom and talk to somebody who's essentially a perfect stranger, but I'm very glad that you did. This has been a great, great podcast episode, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And thank you for all you're doing with the podcast and helping people.
Well, we need to keep doing what we can, don't we? So, all right, I'll say cheerio. Have a good rest of your day, and we will talk soon.